that lousy attempt at singing earlier. Have to work on that. But that was actually a refuge prayer. Namo Buddha. I pay homage to the Buddha, the teacher. I pay homage to the Dharma, the protector. I pay homage to the great Sangha, the community of practitioners. In my tradition, in my practice, this is how I begin each session, taking refuge. And this is what I wanted to talk about today. And I'd like to thank Dr. Bird and Travis for inviting me today to practice, sit with you guys, talk a little bit about Dharma. And like I said, today I wanted to talk about refuge, what that means. Some of you may know what that means. Some of you might be the first time you're hearing about it. Refuge, in a sense, when we take refuge, we know what a refugee is. You know. Refuge in the Buddhist tradition is taking refuge traditionally in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And there's these prayers that we do, that we train and practice that. For some it's kind of like a ritual. Some people don't like that. Some people have issues with the rituals. But yet they get up every morning and have their coffee ritual. And they have, the ritual of getting home and watching their sitcom or whatever it is, So, okay, no rituals. So we all somehow engage in the little rituals that we have. In the Buddhist traditions, practice, these rituals, like taking refuge, these prayers that we do, it's a skillful means of working as practitioners. And taking refuge, at first we think it's something that we're looking to the Buddha to save us or something like that, but it's not like that at all. What we're doing is we're training our minds, changing the patterns of our habitual minds of always taking refuge in material things, taking refuge in negative emotions, taking refuge in distractions. When something is disturbing us, we take refuge in the TV, we take refuge in a bottle of wine, we take refuge in a run in the park even, Not that there's anything wrong with those things, but this is our habits that if we really look at ourselves, our mind, this is what we've trained to do. So when we encounter the Buddha's teachings and we find something beneficial for us, we make a decision. It's not something that says, okay, now you have to do this. It's really up to us. We make a decision to take refuge in something different. What is that? We say Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. They also say the three jewels. But it's really taking refuge in awakening, taking refuge in enlightenment and an awakened mind. This is what we do when we're sitting in meditation here for 45 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is that we do. We've made it a commitment, an intention, a decision to sit, practice mindfulness, awareness. And if we've received instructions on it, we know that we just notice. We just notice whatever is arising in our minds. And through different instructions, like I said, following the breath, meditating on an object. We just train the mind to not engage in whatever is coming up. So this is, in a sense, we're taking refuge in an awakened mind. Wake up, wake up, wake up. And like I said, like when I began my journey, in the text it says, okay, which is interesting. I'll come back to something, but they said, okay, you should take refuge 7 times a day. And I remember just trying to be on it very rigorously and doing it 7 times a day. If I miss the refuge, like, kind of be a little bit upset about it or something. But it's a trick, It's a trick just to kind of train you, really to see how distracted we are, and these numbers of doing these things, these refuge. It's just kind of to keep it in mind, really to keep it in mind. So even if you forget, even if I forgot, it was in mind. It came to mind. Then after some time, as we kind of just absorb what we're doing, we start to see that really taking refuge is really just the moment you decide to be able to be present, be completely present, rather than distracted, engaged in anger, perpetuating negative habits. So this is, in a sense, really refuge, just deciding to wake up, be present, present, present. As I was thinking about the talk this afternoon, Friday, I was kind of just I looked at my calendar, and actually, today is my birthday, in a sense. Today is the day I took refuge 11 years ago. So I was like, wow, look at that. How did that work out? So, happy birthday to me. Another thing I wanted to talk about also is the refuge in the different schools, they said vehicles. There's Hinayana schools of Buddhism, which are Theravadan. Theravadan is one of the schools from the Hinayana, and there's a Mahayana, and then the Vajrayana, different vehicles. Each one has a form of a way how to take refuge. Like in the earlier traditions, they were just very simple. I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. Buddham sharanam gacchami, Dharmam sharanam gacchami, Samgham sharanam gacchami. In the Mahayana, the second vehicle of a school of Buddhism tradition, there's an aspect of it called bodhisattva and bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is awakened mind or heart. So one who partakes on the Mahayana vehicle makes a commitment to work for the benefit of all beings. And this is how they engage the practice, always with the mind of the big view of for the benefit of beings, for the benefit of beings. And they engage in different practices, these concepts called the 6 paramitas, which are the 6 perfections that they cultivate, they train. A paramita is a perfection. So the 6 perfections, perfecting, and one of the first is generosity, diligence, patience, meditation, and prajna, wisdom, paramita of wisdom. So a practitioner in the Mahayana vehicle when they take refuge, they call it taking refuge and bodhicitta. So their refuge, when they say refuge, they say, until I reach full awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the benefit of practices like generosity, may I attain enlightenment for all sentient beings. So that by the benefit of practicing generosity, which is it's kind of condensed, but it's saying all those 6 paramitas. So that's a Mahayana takes refuge like that. In the Vajrayana school, or vehicle, also the Mahayana, but really more the Vajrayana, which is a different vehicle, the third vehicle. The practitioner takes refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha when he takes refuge in his guru, in his root guru, his teacher. And he takes refuge in the protectors, which I won't get too much into that. And he takes refuge in, there's also this Tibetan, it's a yidam. It's like a deity, but not really like as we think of it. It's an object that you take refuge in also, a Buddha, but it really represents an aspect of our own mind, a quality of our own mind. So there's a yidam, Chenrezig, Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva, and this yidam embodies compassion. So there's different practices that one does. I don't know if you're familiar with Mahayana, but his mantra is Om Mani Padme Hum, which is right there in the back there in that little banner. I just looked over there and there it is. Om Mani Padme Hum. It's a mantra, his mantra. So one recites that mantra and activates the energy of that yidam, that deity. But really it's our own quality of mind, and we're just becoming intimate with compassion, which is that Bodhisattva's special quality. One thing that I also wanted to talk about in the Tibetan tradition, like I said, in the Vajrayana, one takes refuge in the 3 jewels and in the root guru. So there's an aspect of devotion that's talked about a lot in Tibetan Buddhism. And really, if you really kind of explore it more, it's really in all traditions, Devotion is really, some people kind of have, again, like I said, they have issues or with a ritual, some things like that. Devotion is something also that's kind of strange for some people. They think it's cultish or something like that, or kind of looking at it as against somebody to save you or something like that, But it really isn't. It isn't that. Like I said, once you actually engage, if you decide to engage in that practice, in Buddhism, really, because like I said, I see it in all traditions. It's really a reverence that you have for your teacher, the person who's in a sense pointed you in that direction. So devotion, a lot of people sometimes come into it and they, kind of goo-goo-eyed like groupies or something like that, but the teachers themselves are even just kind of not really engaged with that. But I think it's just part of the process, And as a practitioner gets more engaged in the practice and does the work, he begins to discover something. Like for me, when I first started, because like I said, I'm from the Tibetan tradition. It was something kind of a little strange for me too. What is this devotion that we hear a lot in the teachings? Devotion for the teacher, and faith, really devotion, the connection to the teacher. And as I began the journey and did practices and continue really. Devotion, it's organic. It develops. It's like I said. It's like for me, it's like a joy because this person showed you something. Kind of in my case, my teachers showed me the nature of mind. So when we are off the cushion in these moments where this this comes up, something that the teacher instructed you, gave you these instructions. You see how it comes up, and it helps you, helps me. There's great devotion that comes out of that. There's great happiness, because it's just like, wow, these teachings work. This works, and this person, in a sense, showed me the way. I mean, you could say this about, if you've studied in universities, or you might have the same feeling for a teacher or something. One of your teachers that you're very grateful for, or a mentor, or a parent, or a friend, somebody who's just been very. It's that type of. There's not the devotion that you just kind of melt away, but there's this real gratitude and thankfulness. So this, for me, this is how I describe that devotion. Teacher-student devotion in Tibetan Buddhism, but like I said, I see it in other traditions also. That people are very happy for their teachers and feel great love for their teachers. This is the person who gave me these instructions, who showed me that there's another way to engage with reality, to work with my conditions.